Hi coaches, today I'm going to talk about setting yourself up as a company. Now in the UK, you can do that as a limited company, and in the US and elsewhere, I'm sure there are equivalent systems and processes. Now I know for me, it was very, very scary, or I felt scared thinking about setting myself up as a business, going through that process, but I found it was relatively straightforward, and I'm sure in many places around the world it's a very similar thing also. Now, there are certain tax implications of doing this. There are certain other implications, and I strongly advise you to take advice from, accountants, financial advisors, other business people who are qualified to give you that advice. The reason I'm talking about this, and I'm not qualified to give you tax and legal advice, but the reason I'm talking about setting yourself up as a company is simply from the point of view of being a professional. Now, for me, it was a really big step when I went from being Ankush wanting to be a coach to, oh no, now I've got a business, I've got to file accounts at the end of every year, oh, I need to look into getting an accountant. It was like a whole nother level of professionalism that I stepped into when I did that, and I kind of did it on purpose. Now, that didn't create any clients, the day that I created a limited company, but it did make me think differently about what I'm doing. It did make me think differently about how I'm showing up as a coach. And like I said, there are tax benefits, I believe, certainly in the UK, for setting yourself up as a limited company. But for me, the biggest benefit didn't come from those things. The biggest benefit came from how I thought about myself as a coach, as a professional, doing this as a profession as opposed to something I was just dabbling in and exploring. And so I would really, really encourage you guys to do the same. And I'm going to read a couple of lines from this book, The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. It was a book that was given to me recently by another coach. And there are a couple of lines I'm going to read out to you. Making yourself a corporation, or just thinking of yourself in that way, reinforces the idea of professionalism because it separates the artist doing the work from the will and consciousness running the show. And I really like that. I'll read it again. Making yourself a corporation, or just thinking of yourself in that way, reinforces the idea of professionalism because it separates the artist doing the work from the will and consciousness running the show. So if you're not a limited company, I would encourage you guys to look at that, or equivalent in your region of the world. And by all means, and I strongly encourage you to take advice around doing that. I'm not a professional, but in the UK, I found it very easy. And like I said, it changed the way I approached this profession and how I saw myself as a professional coach. So I hope that's been helpful for you today. Look forward to any questions or thoughts or feedback.